House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan leads the effort in Congress to hold the deep state accountable, and he joins us now. Mr. Chairman, great to have you. I love the topic. I love the subject. Walk us through your criminal referral regarding Obama CIA Director John Brennan.
Well, as you know, Matt, you're not supposed to lie, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath in front of the United States Congress. And it looks like that's exactly what John Brennan did. And one of the individuals he lied to is the host of the Matt Gaetz show. When you asked him, I thought a great question about the dossier, and he said, I had no involvement with the dossier. He told the committee that he didn't want the dossier in any way referenced in the intelligence community assessment. But guess what? Tulsi Gabbard released the classified version. She declassified the HPSI report, and it says just the opposite. It says Brennan was up to his eyeballs with the dossier, that he actually put in writing he wanted it in the report. And the best one was when another CIA official came to Mr. Brennan and said, Mr. Brennan, there's no intelligence to support the dossier. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be in this report. He says, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Which I think got to his motive. He was out to get the president, put it in the report that they took up to President Trump when he was President-elect Trump in January of 2017 and shared with him. They were out to get him. And so based on your good questions, we got him, I think, lying to Congress. And so that's why we don't do many of these referrals. It's got to be there. But it sure looks like it was, and that's why we're sending it to the Justice Department. One of the defenses
former Director Brennan could offer is that this wasn't really a material lie. Whether he was involved in this or the FBI, that didn't really matter to the work of the Congress. So why do you think the lie was material?
Well, because this is when it all began. I mean, I think it's really important. We're talking about 2016, 2017, between when President Trump was elected, when he was sworn in. They take this report, they go up to Trump Tower, brief him on it. They set the stage, establish the predicate for the Mueller investigation using this garbage document, the dossier. I think this is when it all started. And I would also point to, I think there's a pattern with Mr. Brennan. We included this in our letter back in 2017 when then Congressman Gowdy asked him questions in a public hearing. I think he was not square with Mr. Gowdy. I think he lied there. And then, of course, there's the context of when you asked him the question, when the committee asked him the questions. It was during our investigation of the 51 former intel officials who signed that ridiculous letter that said the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian information operation, which was all garbage. So we think there's a pattern of him not being square with the American people, not being square with Congress. That's all part of it, too. That's why we think this is material and important.
And we were asking these questions with Brennan opening the door to himself as this great expert, right? I mean,
exactly.
To us, it just seemed bizarre that people were using their security clearance to try to advance a political campaign. That's the normal, I would say, cut in the grass we do in oversight. But then when we said, well, Mr. Brennan, how is it that you were able to draw these conclusions about the Hunter Biden laptop? He said, well, because I know everything about Russia. I'm an expert on all of these things. And then, of course, once he said everything was fair game to inform his experience, we had to delve into the Steele dossier because it was so deeply corrupt. I did think it was interesting, Mr. Chairman, that he said, well, this was the FBI. Do you think as these investigations continue, there'll be more of this finger pointing where, back when you and I were some of the only ones defending President Trump, we were out there saying, look, all this stuff is nonsense. They were saying it was all true. Have we now reached the chapter in the book where CIA will blame FBI, they'll blame CIA, and that's how they'll try to evade accountability?
We may in fact be there. Of course, Mr. Comey's been charged with also violating 18 U.S.C. 1001 and not being square with the Congress. So we may be there. But I thought it was interesting when I went back and looked at the transcript, how he was pretty strong on that was the FBI. But what we didn't have then is what was declassified by ODNI Director Gabbard, where it says, but the CIA confronted him on this stuff, and he still wanted it in the assessment. And I think that is the critical point. And never forget, and I know your viewers understand this, but never forget where this all began. The Clinton campaign paid the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who wrote the garbage document. So that was the pattern. It was political, and they knew it. but they wanted to get him so bad. Doesn't it ring true? They wanted to get him so bad, they took the dossier, Comey did, to the secret court to get the warrant to go spy on President Trump's campaign, and then they used it in the assessment that they actually briefed the president on. That's how ridiculous this whole thing is. And I always point out, as I said earlier, this is when it started. We've now been almost a decade of this garbage, going after President Trump and, frankly, others, as we've learned of late, getting the phone records of 8 United States senators, for goodness sake. So this is where it began. And I think it's important that the people who were there at the front end who started this are held accountable.
When I saw the list of the 8 U.S. senators, I was so disappointed. I was like, there were people working with Jim Jordan who were doing way more to unearth the deep state than some of those 8 senators. But you made an interesting point about where we were in time when these events were occurring. And as the Bondi Blanche Justice Department is really looking at all these things together, do you believe this lie of John Brennan was a one-off criminal act, or do you think this could potentially be charged as part of a broader conspiracy that takes its root in the Russia hoax?
Yeah, good question. Maybe the fundamental question. I'll leave that up to the Justice Department. Our job is to present evidence and information we have. As I said, we don't do many criminal referrals. We do them when we think it's there. We think it's there this time, and that's why we've sent it. But yeah, this is, again, I think it's all part of this group of key people in that critical time frame, right at the start of President Trump's first term, when they began this weaponization of the Justice Department that we spent so much time digging into. This is when it began. And I think these individuals, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, who were all involved in changing the assessment. That's the other thing Tulsi Gabbard's report said. They changed the assessment and made it say something that just wasn't supported by any evidence.
You've sent this referral to Attorney General Bondi. You and I had deep frustrations when we sent things to former Attorney General Jeff Sessions and nothing really happened. Just talk about the difference in working with such a strong team like Bondi and Blanche.
Yeah, good folks. Taking the facts, applying them to the law. I've been so impressed. And the difference in the way that they interact with Congress. You know, we sent subpoenas and all kinds of requests to the Ray FBI, which is, you know, Kash Patel's doing so much. I mean, it's so different to what we have with Chris Wray. And then, of course, the same with the Justice Department, Pam versus Merrick Garland and people we had before him even. The response has been night and day. So, yeah, these guys they're doing the Lord's work. I think they're doing it the right way, focused on making sure people are held accountable and making sure they're focused on applying the facts to the law and to each individual case, and then following through on what needs to be followed through on.
Yeah, I similarly trust them. Do you think we've done enough to deter this in the future? I think, you know, you're a sportsman, you're a wrestler. There have to be fair rules for both sides. We don't want to see political opposition research used against Democrats just because we can. Do you think that all that we've done over the last several years to unearth the Russia hoax functions as a sufficient deterrent going forward into future elections?
I think so, and I certainly hope so. You know, we don't want the weaponization of the Justice Department. We don't want the weaponization of any agency in our federal government. They're supposed to serve the taxpayers, not go after taxpayers and not go after their political opponents. So I'm hoping that's the case. But we're going to continue to dig and hold people accountable. We just did last week. We've asked Jack Smith to come in because we interviewed a couple of his deputies, Matt, and you understand this, and we asked them questions like, who else did you try to surveil and spy on? To your question about only the 8 United States senators, I actually think there are probably more, maybe including names like Congressman Gates in there. And we asked that question, and Jack Smith deputies took the fifth on that question. They wouldn't answer that one. So we're saying, okay, we're going to bring Jack Smith in and see what kind of answer he gives us to that question and others as well. So we're committed to holding these people accountable, and if in fact the evidence supports it, referring them to the Justice Department.
If this is charged as a grand conspiracy, which I think would be entirely appropriate, bringing us from that December 9th meeting where Obama brings the folks together and insists that they concoct the Russia hoax, leading all the way up, frankly, to the raid at Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump was in possession of exculpatory documents, and the Biden administration came in and took them, potentially in furtherance of a cover-up. If that is charged, do you think any of these guys who were close to Obama would actually turn on him and offer testimony against the former president?
I don't know. That's a big question. I don't know. And again, we'll see if it's a conspiracy charge that is brought forward in the future. And again, I'll leave that to Mr. Blanche, Attorney General Bondi, and their teams there at the Justice Department. What I know is we got to do our job, and we have a constitutional duty to do oversight. You were one of the best at it when you were a member of Congress. We got to do our job. We got to get the facts, ask the right questions, get the right information, put together the reports that are always helpful to the Justice Department and, more importantly, to the American people. We're going to continue to do that. And if they charge a conspiracy charge, that's up to them, and I'll leave it to them.
Final thing I want to chat with you about this shutdown. Is there any productive discussion going on behind the scenes? As you and I know, these things typically end when one side feels as though they've been kind of sufficiently embarrassed. When do we get to that moment with Chuck Schumer? It feels like this is sort of a shutdown about nothing at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I've said now for, 3 weeks that, Chuck Schumer is basically having a debate with himself, because 6 months ago he voted for the bill that he won't vote for today, and they said, the answer to us to vote for that is to expand Obamacare even more, or to extend the expansion that's already taken place. And I always point out, remember, everything they told us about Obamacare turned out not to be true. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Premiums are going to go down. President Obama even told us premiums will go down on average $1,500. Well, none of that's played out. And so they had to expand it. Now they want to extend it, and they want to extend it again now. I'm like, I don't get it, but that's where we're at. We'll just see. Hopefully the debate between Chuck Schumer and himself, the first self, wins, and we open up the government and then get about doing our business. I've been here every week trying to focus on oversight and the things we do a lot of in Judiciary and Oversight Committee. We'll continue to do that, but let's hope that enough senators will vote the right way.
Yeah, bizarrely, they're taking time off the clock for their own goals. Like, if presumably they have some goal to expand or to extend Obamacare credits, there might be the votes to do that in the House of Representatives. But by taking the time off the clock, they're actually hurting the people that they're acting like they're trying to help. But we're glad you're on the case, Judiciary Chairman.
Which tells you it's all political. Which tells you it's all political on their part.
Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, thanks as always for stopping by the program and sharing what's going on.
You bet. Thanks, man.